Alright, I guess before we even start this video, I'll say sorry for the way the video was cropped. We found out that the way you orient we use a phone, the way you orient it while you're shooting will really change the way the video comes out. So some of it is tall. So today was shoulders and my lighter arm work, my higher intensity, higher volume arm work. So we started off here with these heavy partial side lateral raises. So you can see I'm just pumping it, trying to keep tension on the shoulders, but I try not to really let it come all the way to my hip. I try to keep it out away from my body. You want to get a heavy weight that you're not going to be able to do an actual lateral raise with. So I grab like 70s and just pump them. I do about 20, and then we drop set those to lighter full side lateral raises. And then on the last set we did we dropped it a second time to a really light weight and with a static hold with the arms at parallel until I couldn't hold it anymore, and then we just pump it out partial all the way down to partials until you can really not even move the weight anymore. Yeah, these partials can get pretty painful. And one thing I want to point out, like, you see the way I do side lateral raises. I've had people come up to me and ask me why, like, I only go partial the way up. You see some guys raise the dang things all the way above their head. But it's because, as you can see, as I raise up, my humerus comes horizontal. My forearm, I try to keep at a downward angle towards the ground. And if you do this, really the mechanics will stop you from being able to raise all the way up. It's when you start rotating that forearm and pointing the forearm and leading with the forearm towards the sky is when you can raise it above your head, but that rotation starts to put emphasis on the front shoulder. So we keep the forearm kind of pointed at a downward angle and lead with the elbow and squeeze just the shoulder. And the reason I don't put emphasis on my front shoulder, pretty much most of my shoulder work is on my medial head, so on my side shoulder head, because I've always felt that the front of my shoulders and most people's shoulders are pretty dominant, and that's usually because, well, one, because of the way they're inserted, and also because of all the pressing we do, you know, bench pressing and all that, and especially in bodybuilding, putting emphasis on the upper chest, a lot of front shoulder comes into play, and I feel like that breaks down and builds up the front shoulder fine on its own. So all my shoulder work focuses on the medial head and my posterior head of my shoulder, so my side and my rear head of my shoulder. That way I try to keep my side and my rear head of my shoulder as developed or close as developed to my front shoulder as possible to give that nice symmetrical 3D round shoulder look. And what we're doing here are wide upright rows. I do them this way. I've been doing this way for about a year or so, maybe two. Different than doing it with the close grip. You do it wide grip, just pull up with the elbows, again keeping the forearm pointing down, because once you start lifting and rotating that forearm up, you're not doing the movement right. So we lead with the elbows, and really the mechanics will stop the bar about your sternum. So we did 3 sets here. My last set, as you can see, was more not as focused. I just want to throw some heavy weight on there, so we threw on 225 and did however many times, 8, 10, I don't know. And then we did a drop to just a more focused. Oh, my drops, my heavy ones. When I go from heavy and then I drop, my drop sets are always my lighter. That's when I make up for my lack of form on the heavy sets. Is on the drops. I'm really focused. So you see a lead with my elbows. I'm trying to squeeze my side head and my rear head of my shoulder as I lead up. And then we supersetted that last set with, I grabbed 25-pound plates and just did some lateral raises. So, like, if I do a few of these more, like some people will, on any rear shoulder, they'll pull back like this. But what we're trying to do is push your shoulders out and just pull the shoulder so you're not squeezing back and using your back, treating your arms, and pulling just the shoulder. And you'll see your shoulder joints. Just shoulder don't stop. It's when you start using your back that it goes to the shoulder joint. So if you heard me in the video, we're not focusing on squeezing and pulling back so the shoulder blades pull together. You want to keep the shoulders pushed forward in your mind. Think about actually pulling apart, not pulling back, and that way you won't be pulling with your back and your rhomboids to bring the weight back. You'll be pulling apart with your shoulders. Also, the way we do this is start from. You look in the mirror just above, like your head, your arms will be just above your head, and we come back and down on your shoulder. It's just a different angle. It doesn't really work any different muscles, just pulling at a different angle than normal, just straight to the side. And whether I'm doing chest flies or these rear flies, I try to think of my arms as being locked, almost like if there's no joint or if they're in a cast, and think about just the shoulder, just pivoting at the shoulder, so your arms shouldn't increase or decrease their angle. They should be set and locked, and then just at the shoulder joint is pivoting, almost like that's the only joint you have, and you can only pivot at the rear shoulder joint. Or same if you're doing chest flies, you're only pivoting at the chest. This should help isolate the muscles that you're working, because I see people straighten their arms out as they pull back and bending them as they go forward, but you just keep it set, locked, and just pivot at the joint that you're working. It helps a lot. Here's an exercise that I did on my first ever video shoot with then I shot with Jeff Saigo. I posted on Facebook. It was on RX Muscle. Anyway, this is the exercise I did in that video. I do them every few shoulder days, but we just lean on the incline and do a lateral raise. Same thing here. I try not to lead with my forearm. I try to keep it either just about horizontal or below horizontal, so it's usually at a downward angle. Lead with the pinky. You want to try not to like look in the mirror and look too much, because you tend to open up your body, and that'll start hitting the front shoulder. So I try to keep my body perpendicular with the mirror, so I'm lifting straight to the side. Really, the only thing that makes these much different than a just regular standing side lateral is the angle at which, I guess, the force is applied. Because when you're standing straight up and down, when the weight is just at the bottom, it's kind of a pendulum. There's no resistance, so we go at an angle, and right off the bat, there's force pulling down, from gravity pulling the weight down. Whereas if you're standing straight up, it's basically just a pendulum at the bottom, and the force doesn't even really kick in until you're a quarter of the way up and you're away from your body. So this one, it kicks in, it's right away. So it's just different forces applied at different angles of the movement compared to regular side lateral raise. And that's important to us as bodybuilders, because we're trying to fully develop and every muscle group. So this is accomplished by hitting a muscle at various angles and in various ways. That's how we do so many different, even though it's all working pretty much the same muscle, why we do so many different variations of exercises. Even though it's hitting the same muscle, we're trying to stimulate and recruit muscle fibers all throughout a single muscle group, and this will fully develop a muscle, and it's what makes bodybuilders have that unique look of being nice and round. It's partially genetics, but a lot of it is training specific, and that's why we've also volumized the muscle, which gives you those full round muscle bellies. For our second rear shoulder exercise, we just did the reverse pec deck, rest pause style. So we chose a weight. I wanted to choose a weight. I got like 12 to 15, but I got about 20 on the first one. Just take about 10 breaths, so about 20 seconds. And then you do the failure again. Usually get about half as many. And then take another, 10 breath, 20-second break, and do your third set. Usually it's half as many as your second. And you're fries the muscle pretty good, but same as the cable rear flies I was explaining earlier. If you look at my middle of my back, it doesn't really squeeze together. I pretty much am pivoting with my shoulders, and I really shorten that rear shoulder head. It almost feels like it's going to cramp. I squeeze it so hard, but I'm doing that without actually squeezing my back together. You can notice almost if you were to put a stick or something on my back, it would almost stay flat, because I'm just pivoting at my shoulders. I saw some guys do this a little bit later after we did. I mean, they're just squeezing all the way back. Just because your arms go further back doesn't mean you're working more rear shoulder. You're recruiting other muscles. So if you could create that mind-muscle connection where you just focus on the muscle you're targeting and leave all others out, then you're going to have a much better benefit. And then, I don't think I explained earlier in this video that we're not really doing any pressing because my shoulders have been jacked for about 3 months now. And any pressing, whether bench or especially shoulder presses, the higher the incline, it's actually the rear of my shoulder, some kind of impingement in the joint in there. And anytime I press, it kills on my rear shoulder. So for the last I haven't touched a barbell in about 3 months for chest or shoulders. So everything has been hammer strength or dumbbell. So what I do now is at the end of the shoulder routine, I do a press, but I don't have to go nearly as heavy because my shoulders are fried. So we're pressing on this machine, just a triple drop set, I think, or maybe 3 drops, 4 sets. And just alternate grip each time. I do neutral grip and then the regular grip. Just go back and forth, just keep dropping, and we just burned our shoulders completely out. My shoulders have been getting better slowly, but I'm still not pushing it. I mean, I was at least still able to start with the whole stack on here, but I'm still not doing anything heavy for pressing. They get irritated enough when I do chest days, even on my incline dumbbell and hammer strength stuff. It's when that weight comes back and it gets close to my chest and I'm about to press. It's that pushing motion that actually hits the rear shoulder. So I've been trying to slowly work around it. So you can still work around injuries and stuff like that instead of trying to work through them and still get benefit. I mean, even though I'm not pressing like I used to, I'm still getting new stretch marks on my chest, and I'm still growing, and I've been slowly leaning up a little bit too. So I know I'm growing, even though I'm not pushing like I used to. So that was it for shoulders. Now we're moving on to our arm stuff. Like I said, we hit our heavier arm stuff with back and bis, and then chest and tris. So today with shoulders, we're doing superset bi and tri, but a little bit higher reps. It's superset at a faster pace. So it's more about volume, squeezing, contracting. I'm not really trying to break down the muscle like crazy with heavy weight. So here we just start with, I really like these hammer strength dips. I just, almost like you would with a lunge on your foot, where you step through with your heel. I try to use the palm of my hand and press down, almost like if you were pressing through your heels on a lunge, and just extend with my tricep. And then just jump over to plain straight bar curls. I think I start off with 20 reps on each. So start off with higher volume or higher reps. And we did 3 sets of these today. And the way I do curls, I do a little different each time depending on how I'm trying to work. But as you see, I'm keeping my elbows pointed at the ground and just trying to bring the forearm up and squeeze the bicep. So that's why it's not coming all the way up to my chin, because I'm not actually pivoting at the shoulder and then lifting the weight up to my chest or my chin. I'm keeping my elbows pointed straight to the ground and just lifting my forearms up to shorten my bicep. Sometimes I will lift the weight up and bring it out in front of me, but then your elbows kind of start pointing out a little bit in front of you, which is not a bad thing. It's just, like I said, every time I lift, maybe it's a little different, or I put a variation on it. Just because you see me do it one time now or in another video doesn't mean I do it like that each time either. Every lift has a purpose, so this one I'm just doing it the way I primarily like it, which is just shorten the bicep, try not to bring any shoulder or anything into it. Just squeeze, lengthen, keep the tension on the bicep. You'll see it's a constant motion. Most of my lifts, I keep constant tension. You'll see on my last set, I lift in a way I don't like to lift most muscle groups, which is a rep and then pause, and then a rep and pause, especially with stuff like squats or bench pressing. I like to keep constant tension. I don't like, how you see a lot of people with, not putting them down or saying it's wrong, but for me, I think for muscle growth, that's the best way, is constant tension. And then once you kind of start hitting failure, then you can take a breath or two, another rep, breath or two, another rep. But I never like to see, people who push a lot of weight on squat, they'll squat down, stand up, breathe, squat down, stand up, breathe. I like to just, make the legs hurt, make them stay out of the comfort zone. Even when you bench press and do other stuff like this, it's harder to actually keep the constant tension on there. You could probably push more weight and do more if you repped out, locked out, took a breath, come back down, repped out, locked out. But if you never let up on that muscle, it really beats it up. And I just feel like it's better for growth too. So anyways, last set here, just doing a drop set. So I did my first heavier one. Now you see my hands are open, light grip. I'm just pushing through with my palms, focusing on my triceps. These things really set them on fire. I come up. I don't come way high up, so it's stretching my chest and my shoulders. I just keep it in the range. I feel like it's all on my triceps. So did that drop? See, freaking burns. Doing these supersets kind of keep your cardio up a bit too. But so I'm breathing, trying to catch my breath. Went to my heavier set on curls. You'll see, as I was explaining, I get a few constant reps, but then I have to take a break and pump out one at a time. And then did a drop set all the way to partials. Just kept, even if the muscle's barely contracting, and just keep it moving. It really has some hurt in you.
I was going to explain this. When you use these prone creature curls, you want your seat low because you want your arm out in front of you to curl. A lot of people set these seats up high and they sit like this and they do curl. You're basically doing a dang creature curl. You want your arm up elevated out in front of you to curl like this. It's hard. Otherwise, if you let your seat high, you might as well just do a creature.
I don't do these one-handed reverse extensions too often, but I just decided to do them today. So I kind of set my body at an angle rather than facing the cable straight on. And I just extend down and try to, in my mind, shorten my tricep as hard as, as short as I can, and contract it as hard as I can, so it's balled up really hard at the contraction, and then just let it raise instead of just letting it fall back into reset. Just squeeze, contract, let it raise up, explode, squeeze, contract. These are all right. They're not my favorite, but it's always good to do other things, even if it's not your favorite. So we did 3 sets of these supersets here. Last set we did drop. Also, another thing with these preacher curls, if I could explain it right, when I get set, I try to put my elbows and my forearm in line. It's almost natural for the elbows to point outward and to curl, and you see a lot even with standing curls. A lot of people's elbows flare out. But when I set up on these machines, and even when I stand and do curls, I try to keep my elbows in, and I try to keep it, from my shoulder, my bicep, my forearm, I try to keep it all aligned. So if you look at it in the mirror, I look at it in the mirror, it's all lined up rather than it being pivoted in or outward. It's all coming in a straight line instead of having the elbows pointing in a certain direction, if that makes sense. And then today also we did some posing. I really should be posing more often. As you see in here, it is tiring. Staying tight, staying flexed, keeping your abs in. You can't really take big breaths of air. You gotta stay tight all the time. It's tiring. So I wanted to kind of see where I was at, and I had to send some pictures in. To kind of see where I was at. So as we were doing posing, we took some pictures. See, I'm not super lean. I feel like I hold the majority of my body fat, like most guys, around my stomach. I stay fairly lean at my extremities, but I've been slowly leaning out. Not trying to cut, but just trying to recount my body, look like a better bodybuilder.
Pump makes it hard to...
You see, too, I'm just from the arm and shoulder workout. I'm super pumped, so it's hard to even hit these poses correctly because I'm so dang tight. You can see, I don't know if it's because I'm not able to pull through correctly because of my pump, but my left lat isn't fully activating. I almost couldn't get it to flare out. That's why it's a bit smaller. I mean, it naturally is a bit smaller, but it's even worse in the video because I couldn't quite get it to activate. I don't know why. So we're just running through most of the mandatories. Trying to keep my belly in. I mean, I take in a ton of carbs, about 80 to 100 carbs and 20 grams of protein just during my workout, and you know, most of my carbs of the day are pre, during, and post. Lots of my calories are during this time because it's when they're going to be utilized the most and most efficient to be put to use for growth. But without trying to be arrogant, you can see I could get my waist pretty small and tight when it comes to prep time. So a little distension now is okay as long as it doesn't take the form of that big bodybuilder, you know, gut look. But it happens in off season. And this year I've been really trying to focus on bringing out my lat width, especially from the front double bi and even rear double bi. Trying to really bring those out. You see my erectors have always been pretty strong. And then my arms I've been trying to bring up, which have actually been coming up, and they've never been a genetic strong point for me. So I'm pretty happy about that, but still working on the lat width. I really need to bring that out. And again, here you can see my left lat just isn't popping like my right one. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe I need some muscle activation technique, massage to get it activated again. But I don't know, I feel all right with the way I look right now. I'm really only 230. I think when I got home after the gym, I was only 230 with my shoes on. So I know I don't really look 230. I feel like I look bigger than 230, but I guess that's a benefit in bodybuilding, is the illusion of size. And weight's not everything. I was 240 for a while, but I cut back down and I didn't like how I was getting too bloated and too soft. So